Today is June 22nd, 2021. Tonight's meeting, we have two parts to tonight's meeting, actually. The first half is going to be on PSPS, the Public Safety Power Shutoff, which we're essentially expecting to be potentially happening to us as we approach fire season this summer and fall with respect to fires that break out or windstorms that happen, causing events with which PG&E might be shutting off our power. So that's our first part of this meeting. The second part of the meeting will be a training course that is on tabling. And this is about, for example, sitting in front of a grocery store talking to the public about a particular cause. So we've got a training program that was created by Caroline, and I've helped her with that. And so we'll deliver that as the second part of this meeting.
All right, so good evening, everybody. So I'm going to talk to you about PG&E's Public Safety Power Shutoff, which is what PSPS means. Tammy mentioned that, so that we can learn what it is, what is different, because some things have changed, and how to be prepared and speak about this in general terms. The first thing we're going to start off with is a 5-minute video put together by PG&E about what is a PSPS. And I think this will answer many questions, and there will be there's time planned for questions at the end, or as we discuss things, we can play it loose. So, Dan, if you would start the video, please.
As California faces an increased wildfire threat, PG&E is enhancing and expanding our efforts to reduce wildfire risks across our service territory. That is why, if severe weather threatens a portion of the electric system, it may be necessary for PG&E to turn off electricity in the interest of public safety. This is known as a Public Safety Power Shutoff, or PSPS. With more than half of the area in our service territory now categorized as high risk for wildfires, public safety power shutoffs are an important tool for keeping customers and communities safe. We all rely on electricity for everyday life, and we want to work together with our customers on solutions that can prevent wildfires. The power shutoff events that took place in 2019 disrupted many of our customers' lives, and we are committed to learning from last year and improving in 2020. That is why this year we are working to make events smaller in size, shorter in duration, and smarter for our customers. Every day, PG&E monitors conditions across our system to ensure safe operations, including evaluating whether we must proactively turn off power for safety as a last resort. PSPS events are more likely to occur in the historically drier and windier months of late summer and early fall. While no single factor will drive a PSPS event, some factors include a red flag warning, low humidity levels, forecasted sustained winds generally above 25 miles per hour and wind gusts in excess of approximately 45 miles per hour, conditions of dry fuel, and on-the-ground real-time observations. After the extreme weather has passed and it is safe to do so, our crews must visually inspect each mile of our power lines to ensure they are free from damage and safe to energize. We are working to cut restoration times in half compared to 2019, so that, in most cases, power will be restored within 12 daylight hours after severe weather has passed. Steps we are taking include nearly doubling our exclusive use helicopter fleet during events from 35 to 65, which allow for inspection of the lines more quickly, especially those lines that travel through rough terrain. Using 2 airplanes with infrared cameras capable of inspecting transmission, police, and the California Department of Emergency Services. Our goal is to provide notifications to our customers 2 days ahead, 1 day ahead, and just prior to shutting off power through calls, texts, and emails. We will also use PGE.com, digital advertising, and social media channels and we will work with local news and radio outlets to get the message out to our customers so that they can stay updated. Once the severe weather has passed, we will share the estimated time of restoration and send a confirmation once power has been restored to your home. This year, we are updating our customer alerts about PSPS events to provide more detail earlier, including a window of time power is estimated to be shut off and a window of time power is estimated to be restored. PG&E will also make additional outreach to customers enrolled in the Medical Baseline Program, including those who live in apartments or in trailer homes. To help prepare for public safety power shutoffs, here are some things you might want to consider. Update your contact information at pge.com/mywildfirealerts or by calling 1-866-743-6589. Plan for medical needs. Build or restock your emergency kit. And if you need extra help during a power shutoff, visit pge.com/disability-and-aging to learn about resources for customers who depend on power for medical and independent living needs. PG&E is also encouraging our customers to go to the Safety Action Center to learn valuable information about wildfire risks and what customers can and should do to keep their home, family, or business safe. For the latest on PG&E's wildfire safety efforts and the ways that we are improving public safety power shutoffs, visit pge.com/wildfiresafety.
Okay. So that was pretty much the skeleton of what I'm going to talk about this evening. And certainly we want to entertain all of your questions. Like I said, you can either ask as we go, or you can, or we can hold it till the end and then just have a generalized discussion. As far as what's likely to happen this year, as they mentioned, PG&E is better prepared to respond than they were last year. I want to stress that. This includes also working with local municipal agencies, whether that's fire or the Office of Resources, Recovery and Resiliency. I probably got that backwards, but for those of you who don't know, the Office of Emergency Services has now changed its name to OR3. So just that's the change of language there. So while the impact will be similar to last year, the resources and the response should be qualitatively better. Other things that they've mentioned, of course, is getting back up as soon as possible. They have added in the last 2 years an extensive monitoring facility. You saw some pictures of that in the background. So PG&E has invested a lot of time and also hired more folks. I heard about this at a Emergency Management Council earlier this winter about what PG&E's investment in making the PSPSs less painful for the general public. There's some things that just can't be avoided though, although I think what's going to be helpful for many people is if they get prepared. And I think with the first PSPSs, people were woefully unprepared and attempted to jackrabbit into emergency preparedness in ways that weren't always very efficient. So basically, what do? You get prepared. It's just like everything else that we talk about in emergency preparedness. This is just another emergency with some finer points about how you can get prepared. First of all, I think for families, and well, whether you're 1 or 50, you need to have a plan. You need to think about ahead of time what you need to do to get ready. So when you get that phone call at 24 hours or 48 hours that says, we are anticipating, due to weather conditions or whatever, we're anticipating a power shutoff, then you can get ready. And like I said, I'll go into the details in a few minutes, but the important part is that you need to make a plan. Know what you need to do when, when do you go buy gasoline for your generator or get propane or whatever, and make a list of all these things that you need to do, that when you get the call, then you can just grab the list and it's going to be sort of like grocery shopping. One of the, so there's going to be issues with your food, with you obtaining food and getting the food you need for you and your pets. And the more that you can get that does not require refrigeration or freezing, the better. You're going to use coolers. You want to probably plan to get some coolers. You probably want to plan, if you have a freezer, doing things like taking a whole gallon of water and putting it in the freezer, unopened or opened and treated as you wish. But the thing is, that becomes a cake of ice that you can use for cooling. And then it also becomes water you can drink, especially if you're in a situation where you live on a well that may be immobilized by a power outage. You want to limit the use, the opening and closing of refrigerators and freezers. Focus on shelf stable goods. Use focus on technology. We are all insane about our technology, and there are a variety of ways that you can respond to this, but one of the big ones really is the minute you hear this, a power cutoff, any battery backups or banks or whatever you have, start loading those immediately so that when the power goes off, you have backup batteries for your electronics. Also, you may want to, once it goes out, you may want to unplug stuff that might surge and spark after the power comes back on, especially if you don't know if you're going to be home. So if it's not something you're using, you probably want to disconnect it. There may be areas around you that are not in the zone where the power will be shut off, that has Wi-Fi. So, I know during the last one, some people knew of locations where they could go readily and get Wi-Fi. Stock up on batteries, whether that's banks for your phones or for your flashlights, because you're going to be using flashlights. We do not recommend the use of, for safety reasons, of candles. Download and print any documents that you might need. Solar lanterns would also be good as far as your home. Consider the needs of your pets. Keep cash on hand, because if electricity is out and you can fill up at a gas station, you may not have access to using your credit card. So stocking some cash away in your emergency kit would be a good idea. Leave a light on somewhere We're in the house. Oh, okay. Jen put something in the chat. That's great to know. Did everybody see that, or you can go to chat and read it?
I'm going to read it aloud for the benefit of our recording.
Okay, go right ahead.
Scotts Valley Library has become an official PG&E PSPS center with a generator, so we can accommodate charging technology and keeping people cool or warm when the power goes out. Thanks very much, Jen.
Okay, thank you. So you want to leave a light on? We're recommending you turn all your lights off and all of that, so there's not a surge, but we do recommend that you leave one on so that when the power comes back up, you know. Learn how to open your garage door manually. Not something I would have thought of. Make sure your electric vehicle is charged up. For safety reasons, be sure you know where to place your generator or camp stoves or barbecues outside so they are safe for use. Make yourself a list. You know, it's wonderful to have that list of family members in your computer, but if you don't have it during a power shutoff in hard copy, you may not be able to access it. So you may want to create a little card in your wallet or something. Also checking on your neighbors. If you know, especially if you know neighbors that neighbors that have challenges. Most of this I have been drawing from just good sense and or information plan put out by PG&E. The PG&E website has lots of information. The website is pge.com, and then I think from there you can poke around and find stuff. If you ask about wildfires, they'll send you over to information about wildfires. I want to stress again what they said earlier about the public safety power shutoff zip code alerts. There's a number they mentioned in the video, and there's another number which is 1-877-9000-PGE, which is basically 9000743. You can call those numbers and automatically sign up. This is, if you are already an account holder with a PG&E account, you don't need this. But there are a lot of people out there who are renters or for whatever reason do not have an account with PG&E, and so they do not get the warnings because PG&E doesn't know about them. But so these numbers you can contact and sign up. You do have to renew yearly, but their numbers, it's sort of like the numbers we use with reverse 911 when we give them our cell numbers. So there is a number where you can catch up and sign up with PG&E for warnings. Beyond that, there's also extensive information on power, on generators on that website as well. I'm running out of time. That's why I'm kind of cutting to the chase. The point is there's lots of information out there and it's readily available, and especially the parties that have an interest in this are going to want to help you be as safe and comfortable as possible. PG&E is, as we can hear, they're making plans with other agencies to help facilitate getting through these PSPSs. Jen, does Felton Library have such an arrangement? Do you know?
As far as I understand, the Felton Library has not made that arrangement with PG&E.
Okay.
I think that there are a couple of factors that would prevent it from being a good space for a PSPS center. But I don't know for sure. All I know is that PG&E was at the Scotts Valley Library a couple weeks ago installing their generator. We have some sort of MOU with them. And when the time comes, I say when, not if, when the time comes, they will inevitably take over our building.
Oh, okay. Oh, they're going to take over, huh? Okay. Yeah, well, it's sort of like when they took over the Horseman's Lot. So we have to all bite the bullet and help in the emergency. So I could go on and on for another easily half hour or more talking about the things to do to get prepared. The most important thing is to get prepared. Get the information, even if you just go and fill all regular emergency preparedness guidelines, you'll be ahead of the game, both for you and your animals. And remember that if you have to have an electric fence to keep large livestock in place, you may want to think about that. Do you need a battery? It's pretty amazing the new power options that are present. Again, could be a whole nother topic for a meeting. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dan so he can talk about some things related to this that he's been involved in and expand your view of who all's been looking ahead this time. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a bit about the volunteer aspect of a PSPS, which you wouldn't necessarily think would be the case since it's a big corporate operation, but the amateur radio emergency service here in the county is gearing up to provide emergency communications should the cell phone infrastructure be affected. For a lot of people up in the valley here that have, will have one service like normal people, and should the power be off for more than a day, they say they're cutting down their time off from 24 hours to 12 hours, but that's 12 daylight hours. So that could still be 24 hours. And so what the Aries people have been gearing up to do is to provide an emergency communications center should the need arise. Let me share this picture here. So last October, you're seeing a lovely picture of a building? Yes, okay.
Yes.
So last October, during a PSPS event, we set up a communications center at a business on Highway 9 and 2 Bar Road that people could potentially come to and to report an emergency. So the idea that people would know about this location, and if they had a need for an ambulance or fire, they could come here and report it. So some of us, myself and Joe Marie and Mikhail, helped out with this, and they also included somebody from the what do I want to say, paramedical community. In this case, I think it was an EMT person. In the background is Karen, one of our ARIS members. And I'm looking for another picture. Oh, there's Joe Marie. So this location was a good one because they are in the business of training and emergency providers, and so their location has backup power and facilities that are going to be fairly impervious to power cutoffs. Bob and Kathy also brought their RV, which has pretty much self-sufficient for providing communications. So amateur radio the whole point of ARIS is to be able to communicate without an infrastructure. So we were set up to communicate and pass messages on up the line, which would eventually reach the 911 center and would be able to dispatch help as needed. And so we're training up again this year to do that. And we have a training coming up, which Joe Marie has been integral in organizing for doing just that, where we'll set up a station and then have people come up and be actors. And those people are going to be pretty much CERT trained people. And so they will give some realistic scenarios as to what is going to happen during the shut off. Like somebody's going to come up and say, that they need medical help, or, there's a fire or something.
May I ask a question, Dan?
Yeah, go ahead.
So in terms of what, and remind me again, what's going to be the name of this location? Do you use outpost, or is there kind of an official name for what this a location like this is called?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Well, okay, so it's just, for lack of a better term, I'll just say location. So at a location like this, so can you be a bit more specific? How does it break down that what ARIS is doing gets to someone who's not in the affected area for power? I see you, Diana Sue, but can I come back to you?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yes, still calling it the OES building, but the emergency center in Santa Cruz will be powered by its own generator, and the 911 center is powered by generators. So essentially we'll be passing these messages from one center running off of emergency power to another center running off emergency power.
Mm-hmm. So
and ultimately the fire stations also have their own source of electricity too, from generators.
Okay, so other than the communication part, then once the request for aid has reached 911, the 911's broadcasts go out, and in our area, the fire districts, for example, will receive notifications of what the aid request is. So they'll still be serving the public, right, to the extent that they know that everything exists via this communication leg. So that's how we get emergency services.
Right. Now this year, hopefully, let me stop sharing this. I'm like nodding my head and not realizing nobody's looking at me. This year, hopefully the county will be improving their I don't want to say public awareness of this program. We need to have more than just a sign by the side of the road. People need to know in advance that they can go to these locations, you know, just like the, you know, Scotts Valley Library is not going to be of much use if nobody knows about it. The same goes true about our, you know, emergency communications centers. And if we have enough staffing, of course, we will have more than just the one. And some of those could be a little challenging for the ARES members, as they could potentially not have the very nice accommodations that Lee and Associates provides on that 2-bar road location.
Will that same location be used again?
Yes, they've most likely it will. It's certainly the owners of the business have indicated that they're happy to have us back. Now, what the county will decide is unknown, but you know, the original plan from last year was quite a bit different from what it ultimately ended up being. So we're often a little bit in the dark about what the plans are going to be.
Will a manned location be operational 24 hours a day?
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah, that's the whole point. Will be for the entire length of the PSPS, there'll be somebody, not multiple somebodies there to handle anybody that comes in.
So let me ask a sort of a simple, naive question. Why does ARES need to actually practice this?
Well, we have members in areas of different experience levels, both in operating their equipment. You know, there's a little bit more than just putting a bunch of equipment in a bag. If you've never set it up and maybe found that, oh, these two connectors don't really go together and I thought they did, you know, this typical oops things. But more importantly, we need to practice dealing with the public. These are people that could potentially be having the worst day of their lives, and we need to gather the pertinent information and send it on up the line so they can get an appropriate response. And the other thing is practicing the paperwork. We've come up with a rather lengthy form to fill out for each person that comes in that needs help, and even made more complicated by the COVID questions that hopefully we can soon dispense with. So there's actually three aspects to the practice, and we also have monitors who are there to evaluate how well they did, give them some, you know, constructive criticism or places they could improve. We've actually found some people who really just weren't very suited for this assignment, and that came to be revealed in this practice too.
Mm-hmm. And so that's what where the CERTs fit in here, is that we will be those people that that are interacting with them in such a way to represent actual public response with emergencies. So that's what CERT will be doing for this, which means we get the fun part. They have to to deal with the situation. So those of you who are interested in helping with this activity, be sure to let us know, because it will be a lot of fun. So for us, anyway.
Would you repeat the dates for the training on that?
It's August 1st will be the actual event, and probably in the preceding few days, I will be doing a training for the actors. So we'll have a Zoom meeting where we talk about things, much like we did last night about how to, how to do the call centers, that, you know, so people can prepare themselves to do this and not just walk in totally cold. Not everybody's great at understanding things. So we'll have a discussion ahead of time so that you feel like you're ready to go in and do what needs done. So, but that's the two things that CERTs will have to do in order to participate in this. The event will probably run from roughly 12:30 to 5:30 for the CERTs for the actors. The folks that are running the Aries end of this are going to have a much more onerous job. So, but we do need DSW cards for everybody who is participating. That's one of the caveats. So
I'd like to ask Dan, he talked about the paperwork, and I'm wondering how this documentation gets processed that they collect during their collection of an emergency communication, like they might have done at this Lee and Associates.
Yeah. Well, part of it is to to write down the pertinent information. You know, somebody could talk for 5 minutes and really all you find out is that they have a cat up a tree. So it's important to be able to succinctly communicate back up the chain by radio what the problem is, so that they can again send the appropriate response and prioritize it. You know, obviously the cat up the tree has the least priority versus somebody who is having a heart attack. So the other thing is to have a record. You know, sometimes what gets communicated can be a little different than what's been written down, and so we need to have a record of what was communicated.
and there will be enough varieties in the scenarios so that the person, the radio person who has 3 people walk up will be able to triage those folks and decide which call takes precedence. And so that will be happening as well. And that's one of the things the monitors work with the radio folks to help them get is that it is their job to say, sorry, the cat waits. You've got somebody that's not breathing, that goes first. You say it a little more diplomatic than that, but anyway.
It's a good time to open the floor to anyone who has further questions, either about PSPS or the Aries training for their deployment. Does anyone have any comments about that material?
Actually, yes, now that I think about it, I have a question. Is MRC going to be involved in the PSPS, potential PSPS shutoffs this summer and fall?
Medical Reserve Corps?
Yes. They were supposedly participating in last year's, but they had one person and he was late. And I'm just wondering what the plan is, whether they're going to be, whether the organizers of the PSPS events are planning on incorporating MRC or not at this point. I don't know if anybody knows yet, but
No.
figured I'd ask.
And my response to that is that it would be best for Aries to just assume that there will not be anybody there. And if we do have people, that will be just all the better. But
okay, thank you.
I have a question actually with respect to you had the photo, Dan, of someone who was an EMT who was also at that location. Is there any coordination with sheriff or any sign that like other resources, or would you know, for example, would there be ambulances staged at various more remote locations in the county for faster response, et cetera?
well, that's the normal state, is to have there's usually an ambulance that is assigned to the valley. And there's whatever group of ambulances, say 5 of them in the county, they're all spread out amongst over the county, and typically there'll be one assigned to the valley. So that would be a more normal state of events.
Yeah, just to comment on things.
Mm-hmm.
I think we kind of need to keep it in view of the background for this, that the normal operation with anything like this would be that people would be expected to go to, if they don't have communication from their home or their car, they'd be expected to go to the nearest fire station, the nearest law enforcement, or, flag somebody down if they see an emergency vehicle and make the report there. And oftentimes that would mean that there's a landline that's in operation at these locations, and then they can get it directly to the 911 dispatch center from there. And then dispatch is already set up to handle all the assignments for things. That doesn't involve anything different, as Dan was saying. So that's just a normal part of the emergency things. So in some ways, what we're talking about doing with Aries isn't necessary, but that there are landlines that go down. There are people who are in locations that are too far out to get to the fire station or whatever, and we may be able to put in some more locations. There are just other things that happen when these reporting places of Aries can fill in the gaps that the regular systems just can't cover anymore.
Great, thank you very much for your comments, Jim.
Okay. That's our time.
All right, very good.
Unless there are other questions or comments.
I'll just make another comment about the PSPS. I found that in our neighborhood, one of the best things is to know who has the generators that can be moved around, or long extension cords, and who has the needs, and not necessarily medical needs or something, but sometimes if it's long enough, you just need to do something to connect people's refrigerators for a few hours just so they don't lose all their food. Mm-hmm. And we have people who take their generators. I go around to a couple different houses nearby, and, give them a few hours of electricity on their refrigerators, and then go off to the next house, then come back home, do the same thing.
So put your generator on a dolly.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And get nice big wheels if you have a sandy place that you have to take it over, because my little 4-inch hard wheels don't do too well in the sand. I end up just dragging the thing by brute force.
Ooh. Well, again, prepare, prepare, prepare.
All right, thanks so much. And with that, let's move on to our second topic of this evening, which is on tabling. And Carolyn and I have worked on a slide presentation for this, and so I'll be sharing that with you. And Caroline will take the lead on walking us through it. So those of you may or may not know that Caroline Alam is a SLVEN and CERT member, and she has been involved in educating the public with CERT information and brochures for over 25 years, starting in Southern California, as I understand. And tonight she will be sharing some of the best practices that she and others have learned through tabling. So thank you very much for doing this, Caroline. And I will see if I can share my Chrome browser with the presentation. Can everyone see this all right? Is it big enough? Okay, very good.
I think everyone here, except maybe one or two of you, I have shared a table with. And you probably, those few, may have done it for another organization. So this is kind of a, well, at best a review for you, but for Tammy and me, it's a run through, because we hope to present this to other audiences. So if you have suggestions about how we can improve it, they'll be welcome. The definition of tabling. Shows you that it's another method of gaining information or dispensing information or even getting information. And the purpose. Next one. I've helped with tabling at the fire station with pancake breakfasts, the Santa Shells in Felton, and the National Night Out there, grocery stores. Well, I don't believe I've ever done grocery stores, but farmers markets, makers markets, the Valley Women's Club Environmental Town Hall. So I've seen some of you in all of these places. The legal precedent is defines specifically for markets, and the best practice is always to check ahead of time with the person in charge of that facility to make sure that they are aware that you're coming, so that your organization can be in a good light. You don't want to just jump in and show up someday and maybe be in conflict with somebody else that's doing the same thing. So mind your P's and Q's. Next is scheduling details. These are specifically designed for markets, but can be adapted for other locations. I want to give you time to read through it as we go.
Okay, here's the remainder of these.
Say again?
Oh, I just went to the next slide.
Yes, next. The CERT will be doing market tabling on the fire safety information this summer, and I think there'll be a volunteer coordinator, if I'm correct on that, Liz.
Actually, there's two that we're going to be doing in July. One will be the Makers Market at Mountain Community Resources on the 7-11, I think it is. It's a Sunday. And the other will be and that will just be a CERT focused with a multitude of different information. But the North County CERT Planning Committee is planning to do a blast of tabling on the 17th of July at markets in Boulder Creek, markets in Felton, and markets in Scotts Valley. We welcome everyone who might want to participate in that. It'll run from 10 a.m. to 11 to from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Obviously, we'll be the organizers of that, and all people will need to do is show up and sit at the table.
We'll come back to the more specifics on the date.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you.
Next.
Okay.
Someone needs to organize the materials, beg, borrow, or own your own, or have it set up so you can transfer it from volunteer to volunteer for different setups. And be sure you have a trash bag, even if there's a trash container nearby. You don't want to leave your table in order to walk over there. Next, materials specific from your organization. The more professional your signs are, the better. But the important thing is making sure the information is visible, concise, easy to read. It's good to have samples. Now, let me see my notes here. On the giveaways, we'll talk a little bit later more about the children. It's an important part of this. And it's very important to keep organized. So you want to not only keep account of your brochures, but decide whether or not replenishing them or changing out for the seasons when you put things away so it's all ready. And well, you'll see in a later picture an example of the sand-filled gloves, the wind control, and there's several different ways to do that. You can use bottle caps, or I put two together with washers in between and taped them up, and they made a very colorful weight, but it wasn't so fancy as the gloved hands that the kids wanted to carry off. So there's different ways of doing it. And be sure that you have weights for your canopy if you facing wind situations at all. Next.
I'll just jump in also and say, I think there was one tabling we did where we had a very cute rubber balls, and these were very attractive to the children. They loved them. And then the next thing we knew, the balls were bouncing into the street that was not too far away. So you do need to be judicious about what it is that you might be giving away that might cause other complications.
Mm-hmm. One of the important things is to let people know that you're not soliciting for funds. Some people are naturally suspicious, so they may be reluctant to be signing a large sheet of paper with other emails on it that the public can see. So we have gone to a single sheet for the information so we can put that away and have a clean page for each person. And you need to confirm the information on it before the person leaves, just to make sure you can read what they've written. Right, Mikhail? And
Agreed.
Yes, and don't insult anybody who wants to make a donation. Be set up so that you're prepared to do that if they want to contribute. So that this is the way you can prepare for that. You may be more successful attracting people if they don't expect to be solicited. So if you start out letting them know you're giving out information for free. Next. On the drop-off and pickup, you need to coordinate for the materials and for your volunteers, maybe to carpool, especially if parking's limited. And you want to set up your location in a spot that's visible, but not an obstruction to people walking around. The event may assign you a space, and you want to place your chairs where you can get up and down and move around if at all possible. I always like to be in front because my hearing's a little bad, and I just feel more comfortable being close to people. Try to orient your table or the canopy or whatever so that you don't have the sun shining in either your eyes or the public's eyes. So they're not, they can see what you're doing here. And it's good to try to appeal to as many of the 5 senses as you can with, say, flowers, or giving out cookies that smell good, or helium balloons, or flags that move in the breeze, whatever you can do to get their attention. Even if your tabling time is short, you want to be sure that you know where the bathrooms are, because if you look like you're giving out information, people are going to ask you. And you need to know whether it's available just for you or for the public. Next. We searched through our archives and found some pictures. And this is a setup that has a lot of information on it. You see the balloon there. That actually happens to be a neighboring booth, but you can take advantage of that too. You will note the logo on the canopy and in the banner that's behind the booth, or you can put it any place that's clearly visible if you want them to be able to identify your organization. Next.
Yeah, let's just note that in particular in this layout, there's it's not just a table, but there's some extra paneling that's used for display that extends the kind of the width of the booth, and has some nice photos to grab people's attention. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned that to be in comparison to this setup.
Yeah, this would be probably more like the space you'd be able to use at a market. Tammy, I don't know who you're with there, but it's nicely arranged and doesn't look cluttered or anything. It's good, small display. Next.
Concise, yes. And
yeah.
I'll just note also here, we had some photos that we hung from the sides, the 2 sides of the pop-up. Is a series of 3 photos on either side. And the advantage of that is that they were at about head height. So as people were just moving through the space from tent to tent, they couldn't help but be attracted to look at the photos, which would become subjects for conversation.
Mm-hmm. And next, you can see those photos up a little closer. Also the logo on the tablecloth and the chair in front. It's a higher, so even when you're sitting in that, you're at eye level, and it's close to the public, which is what I like. Displays can on the table can vary in height from size, color, size, and so on. And you'll notice the red backpack there also for CERT. Next.
Oh, sorry, let me just point some of these out because you can see some of these as well. You can see the brochures laid out on the table, and then there's some on stands that are holding some of the brochures vertically. So there's lots that can catch the eye.
Unfortunately, the background on that catches a lot of attention too. And
right.
You'll see this next shot. It happens to be the neighboring booth's white sheets, but it does calm down your display considerably if you can do something like that. And you see how nicely Liz has arranged the papers, and see the gloves with the sand in them. These are double layered just in case the sand breaks, and they're tied together so the children won't walk off with them, because these are very attractive to the children.
So that's a paperweight, right? You said that it's a glove that's filled with sand.
Yes,
it's very clever.
Yeah, for the wind. Yeah, you can see the backpack there also. And Liz looks nice and friendly, doesn't she?
Yep.
And she didn't just pose for the photo. That's the way she always appears at the table. She's always ready to engage. Next. Personal items should be limited to your uniform and a badge if your organization has one. And I emphasize the sunglasses because you need to communicate with your eyes as well as the smile on your face, and that so that dark sunglasses, although are good for your eyes, they are an obstruction. And we're so used to cell phones, and I wouldn't ask you to turn it off in case you need to communicate, but I would suggest that you don't carry on conversations any longer than necessary. If you do get a call, or wait to talk to them later, if at all, you can delay that by seeing who it is. Next, drinking is encouraged so that you don't get dehydrated, and people don't expect you to share your drink. But eating is another matter. It's also good not to get it near your table display, so you get things contaminated with it there. We're still need to be conscious of the COVID protocols, cleaning. So you might have hand sanitizers with you, or next. Understanding your audience is very important. In terms of how much time they have, you can't expect them to stop and talk for an hour if they're on their way to grocery shop or something. And you certainly want to get to them before they go into the store and pick up their food and come out and want to get home with it. Also, if you're in a situation where there's a lot of other booths, if they're of an entirely different nature, it might be a real surprise to people to find you in that situation. So you can use that as an advantage to being of interest if you're engaging enough. And okay, next.
Can I add something, Caroline?
Please.
If you have already addressed this later on, I'm sorry, but also my preference is not to give people anything in their hand when they walk into any store, because if you do, they will lay it down, and then the store owner will be charged with picking up all this paper litter. It'll destroy your materials, or it'll alter your materials, and it will waste your materials. So I usually prefer to give somebody something on their way out than rather than on the way in.
They're interested in, and tell them that it will be available when they come out. So they don't expect to spend a lot of time just picking it up and leaving.
Right.
Good. And flattery is, oh, we're on the next one, body language. Yes. Here we go. This is the interesting part here. Some of it is. You see, Liz is there seated, and she looks like she's ready to be engaged. She's not distracted. She's available, and she's smiling. You can do that with your eyes as well as your mouth. If you look too comfortable, people won't want to disturb you. You can stay seated and acknowledge their presence by leaning slightly forward or nodding your head. If you're standing, it's good to approach slowly so they don't feel like they're being attacked. Your arms relaxed. If you have a brochure in your hand, don't stick it in their face, just hold it close to you, ready to give to them. You can mimic their posture. Good posture is always welcome. If they seem interested, you can step a little closer. If they seem like they want to put you off, you can just step back so they feel comfortable. Next. Here, okay, now the conversations. We'll talk about hooks and how you get them to start the conversation. A little bit on how to build on that response and know when you're finished. So the first thing is looking ready, friendly. Now the big danger in posing your opening is not to ask yes or no questions. If it's yes, do you know about CERT? Yes, and they walk away. Or they just say, well, I don't know what she means by, do I know about CERT? I know something about it, but what does she mean? So what you want to do is engage them somehow where it's not a yes or no, and we'll give you some examples. Now here we have the children. Sometimes it's a family group. If you have something on the display that attracts them, or you have, as we have with CERTs or SLVEN, some coloring books for them, and you can offer that, and then the parents will follow you in, and then you can start to talk to them that way. So just make sure that if you're have an audience that includes a lot of children, that you have something to appeal to them if possible. And flattery is always good. If you see a mother and daughter together, obvious mother and daughter, you can say, oh, are you two sisters? That kind of stuff usually goes over pretty well. For CERT, I like to ask them, what's in your emergency pack? Because that will get in, and if they don't remember, then you go into the fact that you have information about what needs to be in there. And pets, if you have pets, you can always ask to pet the pet. Did I say that right? Or ask them what the name of the dog is or pet is. You can even ask that about the children, but that's not quite as good an approach. And swag is a good something we all get. All right, next. Here are some examples of general hooks where we're not specifically talking about disaster. But you read those through.
Yeah, I love to emphasize that that what you're there to do perhaps is just to give away information. And if you just state that expressly, then you might be able to you know, get the attention of someone who otherwise would say, you know, sort of like, I'm too busy. I don't want to know about your organization. I'm not going to give you any money. It's like, we're not asking for money. We have free information on how to be prepared for the upcoming fires. Stop by on your way out, pick up a brochure or that kind of thing. Is something you can
Free
say
is
to
always
someone
good.
that,
And note the use, sorry.
Go ahead.
Note the use of the pronouns here. We, our, us, your, make it personal. It's not a community, it's your community. Go on.
Right. Next page. Yep.
Next, yeah. These were written specifically for wildfire tabling. Well, some of them were. No, these are not the ones for fire. Well, okay. Some are and some aren't. But you'll notice they're not yes or no questions. Answers here. And they can be statements. They don't have to be questions, as long as you get their attention and engage them. And you can always find relevant information in your brochures that you're talking about. Next. We're a little bit pressed for time. I don't want to dwell on this too much, but does anybody have a suggestion for a hook on power outage?
You can unmute or raise your hand or type it in the chat if you like.
I can't see hands, so I don't know.
Liz? I see Liz and Diana Sue.
Let me unmute here. Well, for power outage, you know, were you impacted by the power outage a night, 2 nights ago? How did you do with things in the, how do you deal with power outages in the winter? You know, something that again doesn't require a yes or no answer. Or maybe it's, if it's been a recent outage, a commonly held event. Always to get somebody a way to connect with someone.
Diana Sue?
I was just thinking about locations also at Highlands Park during last year. There was a group that set up, and it may have been the Red Cross, but they also had hookups for emergency connections so you could charge your telephones. And they were also giving away chargers that people could take home and use to recharge their stuff. And it may not be appropriate for this. I was just thinking about the Scotts Valley Library and the power station, but there were other places also set up for that. And I wanted to mention that because I went there to power up my phone and they gave me a $25 power charger for free.
Wow, so you could use that as a hook, like, oh, how did the power outage go for you? You know, I heard that they were giving away free power chargers at the Scotts Valley Library. All you had to do was show up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just went in there and I didn't happen to have the cord to hook my phone up to what the access that they had available. So they said, no problem, we'll just give you this free power charger and you can take it home and do it on your own time. It was pretty exceptional.
Yes, wonderful.
Anyone else want to practice? Do you have another one for us, Caroline?
Well, actually, I don't have any more examples beyond that, but it's a good thing to think of ahead of time when you know your materials and you're planning on doing tabling, to think ahead of time about how to pose the questions.
All right, let's move to the next slide.
Yeah. First bullet point here in capital letters. We have two ears, or two ears, one mouth. You've heard that before, I'm sure. You don't want to force the conversation. You want to listen to their answers and build on them. Don't go to your agenda. If they have like a go bag, but they don't remember what's in it, then you give them the brochure that has the checklist on it, and then maybe they'll remember, and then you can see what else you have to offer them.
I think it's also important that that you don't argue their points. If someone gets excited about a particular aspect of the conversation or what they're responding to, and they're, you know, they're presenting their point of view, let them, and don't argue with them. But if you're listening to them, it may be that you can find a way to ask them to talk more about their concerns. And those are also avenues back as to on-roads towards, you know, perhaps what your cause is about. But it's very important just to let the public have their say and be polite.
One of the responses that we've given if they question our information is, you say, that's the way I've been trained. And you may try to continue with them and ask them what their opinion is or their training has been. But you don't argue which is best, you just say that they're different.
I would like to intervene with something here, if I may.
I have, sorry, I've got one more slide. Is it about this topic of responding?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. There are some exceptional individuals in our community for whom you may spend a lot of time and get a lot of nowhere. If you are with an experienced person, being a buddy sometimes may be interrupting that conversation diplomatically and asking that person to help you with something. So if you notice somebody is stuck in a circular conversation that's going nowhere and they can't politely get out of it, be aware that you can help them do that by drawing, you know, diverting their attention to something you need them to do.
Excellent. Yes.
And the only way to find out when you're in that is sometimes to observe what's going on and realize also, if you know some of these individuals by personal experience, sometimes it it will just let your buddy not feel like they're spinning their wheels and wasting their time. So it's a very individual situation and all that. But another thing is if you're getting in this black hole of conversation, you could also ask your buddy if they need help from you. And then that's kind of a cue word for get me out of this conversation. So I just want to pass that along.
Thank you. Next.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll know when you're finished, when you've answered their needs, you've turned their attention to the information on the table and they've taken what they wanted. If people seem disinterested, do not be discouraged. They may have picked up something that you're unaware of, or information. I mean, their mind has accepted something, but they're not ready to act on it. But the next time they're approached or exposed to the information, they'll be more willing. So keep a positive attitude to your efforts. Were there any questions, comments?
This is the last slide in the presentation.
I have a comment.
Sure.
It's in regards to kids. I often will look to the parents to, if there is a gimme on the table, to verify that it's okay that the child take whatever the swag is. Some parents have beliefs that you don't want to trip on, type of thing. So if the parent is right there, and may I give this person, this child, the sticker, or kind of make it known to the parent that you're going to be giving something, because especially if there's more than one child, I think it's important to pay attention to as well, because there's this sharing thing that has to occur, or are they equal? Are they the same, or whatever? And you may get yourself into a quick pickle if you're not careful. So, just a couple cautionary tales, and just be aware that if there's kids without the parents running around, you may see them frequently coming back for more tchotchkes of sorts. So
yeah.
you kind of have to pay attention and kind of watch who they are and things like that. So just a couple things.
That's especially important at, say, at the Maker's Mark, where you have shoppers who do go round and round. Perhaps you want to pay attention to who you've tried to hook and it wasn't successful. You don't want to badger them. And
right.
Yes, I think at one of the tables we had to manage the swag that we had and remove a quantity from the table entirely, so that it became less visible, and then be in a position to offer rather than to have the kids go wild and want 20 pencils. Kind of
exactly. And like you already mentioned, Tammy, if there's something where the toy or whatever the swag is can be used right then and there, make sure it can be used in that environment. Like if, we're giving away the balls, like you mentioned, we continue to give them away, but this is for when you get home to play, type of thing. You need to, here, Mom, here's the ball, So if there are things like that, you kind of have to be creative on the fly. Depends on your situation, where you're at.
Yes.
Dan raised his hand, and then
yeah. I noticed a lot of times in the past when we've been tabling and we've kind of gotten people interested in CERT, but then the next question is, well, when's the next class? So my suggestion is that hopefully we'll have that answer with us.
Yeah, we've learned a lot of those techniques and the frequently asked questions, and try to have the information ready.
Yeah, that would be really appropriate. Contextual information from your organization. What's the next coming up event? What are the dates for training? How can I get more information? Maybe about your own organization. Hopefully you'll already have some information about that in your tabling supplies.
Including membership opportunity, yeah.
Diana Sue.
I know that we have quite a number of little, I don't know what exactly they're swag, but they're little bags that someone could put information in or put their lunch in or whatever. And it seemed like it would be appropriate for us to have those bags available even for the kids, and to have a to-go list inside the bag.
Oh, that's an excellent suggestion, because that is our most frequently asked for material.
At one point, we did have such a system going before COVID sort of.
Yeah, I mentioned when you're standing, you might have something in your hand, and that's usually what we had, was the checklist of supplies, because it was the most frequently asked for.
Just putting up some of the pictures that we could show. Of course, these photos are primarily, of course, of the tablings that were done on behalf of CERT.
I found if you need to have your personal supplies with you, it's good to have an old cooler or something that doesn't look like it's going to be used for something, to secure something. It's just a, you know, you wouldn't expect somebody to go in it for your own lunch or something. So it seems to be a little bit more secure than something more obvious. The blue bin under that table is for the supplies that were brought there.
Yeah, yet another great reason to have a tablecloth for your table is so that
Yes.
you can stash your materials.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that we've stuffed a bunch of stuff under this table. I think it's actually maybe the cover for the pop-up tent is jammed under the table.
Yes, yeah.
But it keeps the space uncluttered, which is nice. Oh, and you can see here that there's actually weights at some of the legs of the pop-ups. There's gallon jugs of water, and there's some concrete bricks. I think those might belong to the tent that's adjacent to us. Because the slightest breeze will come up, and
yeah,
somebody's pop-up is going to go flying. So,
well, we're fortunate with disaster preparedness in that our weights can relate to what we need, such as stored water. Or even cribbing material, or.
Yes, Mikhail, I can hear you.
Okay, something's going wrong here. Changed out my mic. Diana Sue had mentioned bags, and I was saying at one point we did have regular little swag bags ready to go. They were plastic bags with a handle. They had a CERT logo. Inside was a list of go bag ingredients and a pencil with Santa Cruz County CERT or some such thing, and one of those little press to activate disposable flashlights. And I would love to see that tradition come to the forefront again, because people were real interested to find out what was in those bags. So I know it's 2 minutes later and I've been trying to get my mic to work, but
well, that's a great suggestion for those who are organizing for CERT. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Or any organization, just the bag and the mystery bag, what's inside it? Hey, it's information and you know, swag from this organization, so you can get more stuff out that way.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, for listening to our presentation and for your questions. So in fact, let's go back, Liz, let's circle back to what you were saying. So there are some tabling dates that are coming up, if I understand, and what organization would be doing this specifically? Could you repeat that? Oh, I think you're muted.
Okay, so now I'm not. Yep. Yes, there are 2 tabling opportunities coming up this coming month in July. Let me get my phone out just to confirm those. Sorry, I had to go in another room. One will be on July 11th. This is a makers market. It will happen at Mountain Community Resources. I need people to work sometime between 9:30 and 3:30. So if somebody wanted to do a 6-hour shift, that's fine. If they wanted to do a 3-hour shift or a 2-hour shift, just contact me and let me know what you'd like. I live very close to this location, and I'm planning to help make any transitions or do any fill-in. So that would be for the 11th of July. And then the next one is on the 17th of July. That is when the North County CERT Planning Committee is planning to do tabling in Boulder Creek, Felton, and Scotts Valley. We're hoping to have 2 locations in each area.
Oh, on the same day?
All on the same day. That's the whole idea, is like to do a blast. And what we're going to be doing is focusing on 3 things, mainly fire, because it's the season. We'll focus on distributing information about CERT. And we'll also distribute information about Map Your Neighborhood. And we'll also hope to have some information about FireWise, which is kind of Map Your Neighborhood for fire. So I think that those 2, planning your neighborhood, I don't care which program they use, as long as they get to know their neighbors and understand what's needed in an emergency, irrelevant of what the emergency is. So those are kind of our focuses. So, we're not going to be doing anything probably on CERT training, although if that came up, if I had info, I would put that out. So, but we're focusing on that. And the thing is, we'll have 2 people. Our goal is to have 2 people at each table for that 3-hour period, whether it's the same people or somebody does an hour and a half and another person does an hour and a half to fill a shift, doesn't matter. We will be setting up, we're in the process of putting the Sign Up Genius stuff together right now for that. No, Joe Marie, I'm not asking you to do it. We're going to have, she's really good at it. But anyway, so that will be for the 17th. And those are the events that we know about right now. I would love to develop with Caroline and SLVEN, a cadre of people who like to do this, and we'll sit at a table for an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, because it can be very rewarding. And you can give the public lots of information that they just don't have. They just don't often get an opportunity to just ask somebody. We may have some members of the fire department also sitting the table up in Boulder Creek. I don't think Felton is going to have the staffing. But anyway, we're welcoming them to come and be with us as well, so that the public can ask the fire department. But the goal is basically to blitz the area as early in the summer as we can about fire matters that they need to pay attention to. So that's, and some of you know, the North County CERTs try to put together a cooperative venture once a quarter. So we're kind of not reinventing the wheel all the time. So this will be the cooperative venture for this quarter. We had one when we did the TEPs in January. We had the radio event in April, and this is going to be our next sort of everybody getting to know everybody event. So if you'd wanted to work at, once the thing is set up, once the Sign Up Genius is set up, if you want to work in Boulder Creek or Scotts Valley, you can do that. We just want to have the tables staged. So,
great. Thank you.
I think that covers all the facts. If you have questions, you can always contact me. My email address is there on the edge of my screen. So,
Liz@SLVEN.org. Okay. All right. Anyone else have any comments or questions about the training tabling?
Thank you. You did an excellent job of taking the stuff that we kind of know by training and putting it into a format that made sense. So thank you.
Ditto.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Tammy.
Yes.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you to both of you.
All right. That brings us to the end of our general meeting.